Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. Miscarriage. Family ignored me as I cried in pain from a miscarriage. Aunt said, "Stop making everything about you." My cousin yelled, "You always ruin family dinners." I collapsed at the table, blood everywhere. They just kept eating. I didn't speak for 3 weeks. Then my little brother sent me a screenshot that changed everything. My name is Allies. I'm 34. What happened to me broke something deep inside, and I don't think I've started to really heal until now. The night it happened, my cousin Tia said, "You always ruin family dinners." And my Aunt Cora snapped, "Stop making everything about you." I was miscarrying right there at the table, bleeding through my jeans, crying in front of a roast and mashed potatoes, and they just kept eating. I didn't say a word to anyone for 3 weeks. Then my little brother sent me a screenshot, just one image that made everything unravel. We live in Erie, Pennsylvania, not the kind of place that makes national news unless it's buried in snow or someone finds a body near the lake. My family's been here forever. Old school, small town, judgy in a way that's disguised as concern. Everyone thinks they know everyone's business. You know the type. Every third Sunday of the month, we do family dinner at Aunt Cora's place. It's a tradition my grandmother started, years ago. And even after she passed, Ka picked up the torch like it was her life's mission. In her mind, this monthly gathering kept the family together. Though honestly, it mostly just meant pretending we liked each other for a couple hours over pot roast and a bottle of cheap red wine. The Sunday this happened was unusually warm, for October. I remember that because I debated not wearing jeans. I was 10 weeks and 4 days pregnant at the time. Not far along, but after years of infertility, 3 chemical pregnancies, and a failed IVF cycle, this pregnancy felt like a miracle. Had started cramping that morning. Low, dull aches that felt more than just normal stretching. I'd been through so many ultrasounds. I knew what normal was supposed to feel like. But Blaine, my husband at the time, had already left for the day. We'd fought the night before. He told me I was too obsessed with the pregnancy and that I was trying to make it my entire personality. I remember crying into a kitchen towel while staring at the calendar, the words "dinner at Cororis" circled in blue ink. I told myself I was strong enough to go, that maybe the distraction would help. The moment I walked in, the air shifted. Not a single person acknowledged my pregnancy. Kay looked up from the kitchen and said, "Well, she showed up. That's a miracle in itself." No hug. No hello. Tia was already at the table with her phone in one hand and a fork in the other. She glanced at me and mumbled, "You look exhausted." I remember forcing a smile and trying to steady myself against the door frame because the pain in my lower back had just shot up my spine. I walked to the table, sat down quietly. No one asked me how I was. Not my mother, not my father, not my uncle, not even my older brother Elliot, who used to be the closest thing I had to an ally growing up. I tried to drink some water. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the glass. The pain was intensifying, now, wrapping around my lower belly like a belt of fire. I squeezed my thighs together and pressed my hand into my lap. Nobody noticed. Dinner was served. Roast beef, potatoes, green beans from a can, Cora's signature dinner rolls, which everyone always said were just like Mom's. I stared at the food, trying to ground myself. I could feel the warmth building between my legs. Something inside me was screaming, "Get up, get up, get up!" Instead, I whispered, "I think something's wrong." No one even looked up. I said it again, louder. "I think something's really wrong." Tia didn't look up from her plate when she said, "Can we not do this again, Allies?" I clutched the edge of the table, trying to stand. That's when the pain knocked the air out of me completely. It was as if my whole body clenched and then gave up. I felt the gush, warm, thick. It went right through my jeans. "I think I'm losing the baby," I choked out. Aunt Cora looked me straight in the eye and said, "Stop making everything about you." Tia pushed her chair back. "You always ruin family dinners." I collapsed. The sound of my skull hitting the wood floor should have been enough to break the trance. It wasn't. I lay there on my side, one hand under my belly, the other splayed on the floor. My vision was going white at the edges. I felt liquid pooling underneath me. I could hear them chewing. I could hear knives scraping plates. Someone muttered, "She's just being dramatic." The only person who moved was my little brother Jasper. He was 16, still in high school, barely says a word most days. He came rushing over and knelt beside me, his voice cracking as he said, "She's bleeding." She's really bleeding. Still no one else got up. Jasper called 911. He told the operator I was pregnant and had passed out. I drifted in and out. At one point, I opened my eyes and saw Tia looking directly at me with a blank expression, like I was a bug on the floor. The next thing I remember clearly was waking up at UPMC Ham. I was hooked on fluids. A nurse was checking my vitals. My ob stood near the foot of the bed with her clipboard held close to her chest. I already knew I didn't need her to say it. There was no fetal heartbeat, she said gently. Jasper was the only one in the room. He looked like he hadn't slept. He didn't say much, just sat there beside me, looking like he didn't know whether to hold my hand or not. I didn't cry. Not then. I went home alone. Blaine never came. I found out later he'd gone to Buffalo with friends to clear his head. For the next 3 weeks, I didn't speak to anyone. I kept my phone on airplane mode. Didn't eat unless Jasper brought me food. I lay in bed or on the couch, sometimes the floor. The baby's first ultrasound photo was still on the fridge, right next to a magnet from the aquarium. I didn't even have the energy to feel anger. Just this bottomless, dull void. Then one night, I got a text from Jasper. It was a screenshot. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. A private Facebook chat between Aunt Cora and Tia. Tia had sent a meme. A woman with mascara, running down her face, holding a wine glass, with the caption, "When you fake a miscarriage for attention and nobody even claps." Aunt Cora responded with, "That's our allies face, face, face." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My ears rang. Then I laughed. It came out harsh, like a bark. It was the first sound I'd made in days. That laugh turned into sobs. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the living room floor, legs crossed. That image burned into my eyes. The lights were off except for the street lamp outside, casting long shadows on the walls. I must have read the screenshot 20 times. I didn't want to believe it was real. But I knew it was. I knew their voices. Their tone. That cheap cruelty. They wrapped in sarcasm and passed around like wine at those dinners. I thought about confronting them. I thought about sending a message to the whole family thread, one of those long scorched earth rants that burn. Every bridge in the most satisfying way, but something in me froze. Not out of fear exactly. It was more like something ancient finally settling into place. That screenshot didn't shock me. It confirmed everything I had suspected for years. The truth is, I had always been too much for them. Too sensitive, too opinionated, too emotional. The one who cried when our dog died. The one who stayed in her room during my uncle's drunken rants. The one who called out my cousin when he made that disgusting joke at Thanksgiving. And now I was the one who made a miscarriage about her. I put my phone down and sat there just listening to the quiet. It was Jasper who saved me again. The next morning, he showed up with breakfast from the corner diner, 2 egg sandwiches and a chocolate milkshake. He handed it to me and sat down on the carpet without saying a word. That was his thing, never pushing, just being there. After a few minutes, I asked, "Why'd you send it?" He didn't look up right away. Then he said, "Because you needed to know and I wanted you to leave them before they take more from you." I didn't realize I was crying until he gently passed me a napkin. Over the next few days, I came back to life in pieces. I started showering again. I washed the sheets. I vacuumed. I folded the laundry that had been sitting on the couch since the week before, the miscarriage. I even called my OB to follow up on test results. There was still a lot of pain. My body ached like I'd been in a car crash. My emotions were still unpredictable. Crying at cereal commercials, going completely numb at night, snapping when the doorbell rang. But something had shifted. The rage had taken root, and it kept me upright. I decided I wouldn't let this rot inside me, so I emailed the screenshot. No commentary, just the image. Just the image. I attached it to a blank message and sent it to my mother, my father, Elliot, Cora, and a few other extended relatives who had been at that dinner. The subject line was one word: shame. I waited. The silence was almost satisfying. Cora didn't respond. Neither did Tia. My mother called me 3 times but didn't leave a message. I didn't pick up. Then finally, Elliot replied. All he said was, "I didn't know. I'm sorry." That was it. Not, "I should have helped you." Not, "I stood there and did nothing while you bled." Just, "I didn't know." Which of course was bullcrap. He was there. He watched me fall. He saw the blood. He watched them mock me. And he did. What he always does. Nothing. That was when I knew I had no family anymore. Not really, except for Jasper. A week later, my mom came to the apartment. She didn't call ahead, just showed up. Like that was still allowed. I opened the door, stared at her and said, "No." She looked stunned. "Allies, please. I just want to talk." "No," I said again and started to close the door. She reached out, blocked it with her hand. "You're blowing this out of proportion." That stopped me cold. I stared at her hand on the door frame, then I looked her in the eye and said, "I was hemorrhaging and you watched." She tried to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I pushed the door closed, locked it. She stood outside for a few seconds, then left without another word. I cried for hours after that, not because I regretted it, but because I finally realized I'd been waiting my entire life for that woman to protect me, and she never would. Blaine officially moved out 2 weeks after that. He came by to collect his stuff. No apology, no questions, just awkward silence and a few grunted phrases. Like, "Hope you're doing better." I asked him one question. "Why didn't you come to the hospital?" He looked at me confused. What was I going to do? "You had your brother." I laughed in his face. Not a ha-ha-ha laugh. A bitter, stunned, broken kind of sound that made him flinch. When he was gone, I sat down and filed the divorce paperwork. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Jasper at first. There's something strange about realizing you don't need people you once thought were vital to your survival. I had spent most of my adult life trying to make them love me, trying to prove I was good enough, trying to not make everything about me. Now I was sitting alone in a half-empty apartment with a drawer full of prenatal vitamins, and I felt oddly steady, not happy. Not okay, but free. I started writing again. Little things, poems, notes to myself. I cooked small meals and lit candles at dinner. I took long walks around the neighborhood and sat on the bench outside the library with a cup of tea, just letting the world move without me for a while. Jasper kept checking in, sometimes just a thumbs-up emoji. Sometimes a photo of a squirrel in the school parking lot. He never pushed, just kept that tether between us like a lifeline, and I held on. I still haven't blocked the rest of the family. Not yet. I think part of me wants them to see me living. Without them, to feel the weight of their absence, where they thought they were irreplaceable. Maybe that's petty. Maybe it's pride. I don't know, but I do know this. I lost a child, and instead of holding me, they mocked me. Instead of comforting me, they humiliated me. Instead of acting like a family, they exposed who they really were. And now I'm figuring out who I am without them. I didn't set out for revenge at first. All I wanted was distance, quiet, the space to breathe without flinching. But grief has a way of distilling things. It shows you who you are, and who people really are when nothing is left to hide behind. For weeks, I focused on rebuilding myself. My OB had recommended a support group for women who'd experienced pregnancy loss. It met in a modest little room in the basement of a Methodist church off 26th Street. Every Tuesday evening, I'd go sit in the circle of folding chairs and listen to strangers tell their stories. At first, I didn't speak, just nodded, cried a little, and sipped lukewarm tea from a styrofoam cup. But then one night, I told mine. Every word from the dinner to the collapse to the screenshot. The women sat in stunned silence. Then someone said, "That's not a family, that's a firing squad." I laughed. a real laugh for the first time in what felt like forever. That night, as I walked home under the amber glow of the streetlights, I started thinking not about punishment, but accountability. I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted them exposed. Not to me, I already saw them clearly, but to the world they pretended to charm. And I had an idea. It started with a simple blog post. I wrote the story, not under my real name, but with enough detail that anyone who was there would recognize themselves. I didn't name names, but I described the dinner, the blood, the silence, the laughter, the meme, the screenshot. I changed nothing, softened nothing. The post was called "The Night My Family Ate Roast While I Miscarried on the Floor." I hit publish and didn't look back within a week. It went viral. Not viral like celebrity gossip or political scandals, but it hit a nerve. Women started sharing their own horror stories. People emailed me, commented, wrote articles, a podcast even. Read the post out loud in an episode about family dysfunction. I wasn't prepared for the reach, but neither was my family. Erie's a small town, and while I didn't name them, it didn't take long for people to figure it out. Cora worked at a local real estate agency, a boutique office that prided itself on family values and community trust. Suddenly, a few clients backed out of listings. Word started to spread. I heard through a former classmate that her coworkers had quietly distanced themselves. She was eventually asked to step away from the company, some polite PR version of being Firedia, who worked as a youth mentor for a nonprofit downtown. Lost a grant after parents raised concerns. Apparently, some found her social media and matched her tone to the post. The nonprofit put her on leave. She posted a vague rant about cancel culture and family traitors, but she never mentioned me by name. My mother and father started getting asked awkward questions at church. They stopped going. I didn't gloat, not in a dramatic way, but I did feel something shift in my chest, like I'd taken back a piece of myself. They tried to bury Jasper, and I started spending more time together. We drove to Presque Isle some weekends and walked along the beach, letting the wind whip through our coats. Sometimes we didn't talk at all, just listened. To the waves in one of those walks, he said, "I'm thinking of applying to Pitt." I stopped. "Pitt in the city?" He nodded. "I want to get out of here and I want you to come with me." I didn't answer right away, but at that moment I knew the answer. We moved to Pittsburgh 3 months later. I found a small apartment near Bloomfield, cozy, light-filled. Nothing fancy. I got a part-time job at a used bookstore and enrolled in a writing course at the community college. I started working on a memoir. Not a sob story, not revenge porn, just the truth. My truth people still emailed me about that post. Some shared their own miscarriages. Some told me they finally stood up to toxic relatives. One woman told me she printed the story and read it aloud to her therapist. That floored me. I never went back. To Arione Saturday morning, almost a year after the dinner, I was walking home from the farmer's market. When my phone buzzed, it was a message request from an unfamiliar name subject. "Your blog," it read. I recognized the story. I was at that dinner. "I'm ashamed of how I acted. I didn't help you. I didn't say anything. I hope one day you can forgive me." Elliot, I stared at the message for a long time. Then I closed it. I didn't delete it. I didn't respond either. Some bridges stay burned and some roads are better walked alone. Now every third Sunday I cook for myself. Just me sometimes, Jasper. If he's Freya. Small meal candles lit peaceful, no judgment, no silence soaked in contempt, no passive-aggressive prayers. I sit at my little kitchen table with the ultrasound picture in a new frame, a different one it used. To be surrounded by grief, now it sits beside a small potted plant, and a handwritten note from a woman in New Mexico who said my story made her leave an abusive home. That photo, to me, means strength now, not pain. He didn't just survive what they did. I wrote it down and they couldn't erase it, not with silence, not with shame, and certainly not with dinner rolls.